So I'm going to start with the example. As I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's a viewer of the show, so he'll be tuning into this either live or later today. But he's a viewer of the show, and he's been trying to buy Bitcoin for the last couple months. He's had some issues at Coinbase. That's number one. Avoid Coinbase at all costs. It's not worth it. But he's been trying to move Bitcoin from his bank account into an exchange, Bull Bitcoin. And he's had a hell of a time doing it. Bull Bitcoin had some issues with their e-transfers, but it wasn't that I'm going to talk about here. So he tried sending a bank wire from this bank, TD Bank. And I'm obviously not going to expose his name or anything like that, but I don't mind talking about the TD Bank. So he tried sending a bank wire from TD Bank to Bull Bitcoin. And I think it's pretty common if you're sending a large amount through a wire that the bank kind of checks in with you and says, are you sure you want to be sending this bank wire? We just want to confirm. Our fraud department has kind of flagged this as a potential fraudulent transaction. And that's fine. I think that the banks have been doing that for many years. I think that's why many of them are still in business, because they insure that money, right? I don't know how that works with bank wires, but they want to make sure that whatever money you are sending is a legitimate transaction. The receiver of that is somebody you want to be doing business with. So what happened there is they flagged it. They set up a conversation with him just to make sure he knew what he was doing in terms of who he was sending it to. And he did. He knew exactly what he's doing, buying Bitcoin, moving it to Bull Bitcoin, a very reputable Bitcoin exchange here in Canada. They've been around for 10 years plus. And so they brought him in and had this debrief with him essentially. And they determined after all this conversation that they had with him that they weren't going to allow that bank wire to go through. So, like I said, I understand the fact that banks are wanting to be a little bit more cautious here. But if you take the time to meet with your client and they know exactly what they're doing, who they're sending it to, they have conviction over that, and you still tell them that they can't send that money away, that's not a good situation to be in. And I don't think that's a very uncommon thing that's happening in the world right now. Banks are doing everything that they can to try and stop this progress in Bitcoin. So with that, what do you do in that situation? What would you do in that situation? If your bank, your money is in that bank, and if your bank says that you can't move that money because we don't think that you know what you're doing with it, what do? Well, the point of today's show is that you just need to cut ties with that. You can't afford to be there. There's way too much at stake right now in terms of what's happening in the old system and what's happening in the new system of Bitcoin. There's way too much at stake. And if there's anybody in that path of you moving some of your Bitcoin or your fiat into Bitcoin, if there's anybody in that path that's trying to stop that, you need to cut ties with them instantly. Don't even think about it. Just say, okay, I appreciate your insight here with this bank wire, which I know what I'm doing, but I'm going to take all my money out of this bank. And that's what we have to do, because then they're going to realize that this is happening whether they like it or not. And they can either continue doing what they're doing in terms of trying to stifle this momentum, or they can embrace it. And so as that happens, as people start doing that, they just cut ties. Banks like TD are going to realize that unless they start embracing Bitcoin, they're going to lose a lot of clients and a lot of revenue.